I know I sound like a weirdo when I say it, but I can tell when the soap is really getting close to done or done because it has a specific smell. I don't know, and I can't describe what the smell either, but it's done soap. Welcome back, friends, or if you're new here, hey, it is Lauren the Soap Witch, and this little cozy corner of the internet is where I play in my hair, mix up my magical concoctions, or even go rogue on a recipe in the kitchen. So today we're mixing up a magical concoction in the name of apple cider donut scented soap. So you just saw me pour in my aloe vera juice from my aloe vera based soaps because that's mostly what I make. And now I am going to add in some sugar if I could ever get it out the bag, okay? And I'm just gonna sprinkle that in. Next, I'm gonna pour in some sodium lactate, which is really just liquid salt. The sugar and the sodium lactate are both to help the soap be more fluid throughout the cook. The sugar also helps the bar be a bit more bubbly, the end result, and the sodium lactate helps for the end result to be a little harder. So now I'm just stirring that in because I like to make sure that both ingredients are dissolved before I move ahead with the lye. Speaking of, I'm going to go ahead and weigh that out on my scale. Next, I'm going to combine the two. I'm going to stir as I add my lye into my liquid. Always pour your lye into the liquid, never the other way around. Bad things can happen. It won't dissolve properly. Could have you a little mini explosion. I don't know. You don't want to find out. Anyway, so I like to make sure I get it nicely stirred and dissolved. And I stir it until it pretty much clears up, until it looks a little less milky. And then I like to combine it with my oils. Pretty much as soon as I feel like the lye solution is ready, that's when I go ahead and combine the two. I like to make sure that the lye is still very hot. I wish 200 degrees, but it's usually probably closer to like 180 degrees or somewhere in there. The oils, I try to make sure that they're around 200. As long as they're both around 180 degrees though, I will still go ahead and mix it. And now I'm going to obsess over scooping it all out the cup. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start the customary stick blending. I stick blend it pretty much to completion now. So you'll see me go through pretty much all the phases, starting out getting it to the emulsion phase and then following up with getting it to trace, which is, you know, kind of like a pudding like consistency. Not quite, because pudding is pretty thick, but you know, it sort of resembles that. It definitely thickens up nicely. Kind of sort of reminds you of pudding, just maybe a looser pudding. Eventually, as you continue through with the stick blending, you will notice that it starts to look a little chunkier, less smooth. It'll start looking like it wants to separate. You want to keep stick blending. You may see little pops, bubbles, or whatever, what have you, in your mixture. You want to keep going. Those used to scare me. Don't let it scare you. You're on the right track. You want to keep going. Yeah, it's getting that kind of chunky-ish, less put together type look. Like it definitely wants to separate. Gonna continue right through with my stick blending. Know I'm on the right track. It's looking a little apple saucy. That's one of the phases that they call it through the hot process cook. I said it a bunch of times. I really feel like that whoever named the steps might have been hungry, except for the Vaseline stage, because applesauce, and then after that it's like mashed potatoes. We ain't got there yet. I'm like, were you hungry? You're making me hungry. I take my stick blender out at this point just to see if I'm gonna get a volcano. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. If I don't see when I just go back to stick blending, but every time I notice that it is much thicker when I stick the stick blender back in there and start going. At this point I start doing a pulsing stick blend. That's what I call it, where I'm pulsing the stick blender as I stir the mixture around. And I will definitely start to get volcanoes from this because it is really cooking. I think it is so cool that it cooks without a heat source. Because, you know, we warmed up everything, but there's no heat source under this after you combine everything together. It's just a very cool chemical reaction, and there's a volcano happening. I don't know if you see it, but there it is. It's one of the coolest parts about making the soap. And when I don't have a ton of soap in the pot at one time, I let the volcano cook for a minute because I just think it's cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and get back to stick blending at some point. I'm just enjoying the view, I guess. Here we go. Okay, move it along. So back to the pulsing stick blending. Just gonna stick blend it all together. I know I sound like a weirdo when I say it, but I can tell when the soap is really getting close to done or done because it has a specific smell. I don't know, and I can't describe what the smell either, but it's done soap. I think I've just made soap enough that I can just tell. And also it does have a certain look, which we will get to. So anyway, pulsing stick blend. When you're stick blending and it's still wanting the volcano while you're stick blending, you're done. And you're done using the stick blender anyway. And so that's when I take out my stick blender and get my trusty whisk and just start beating the mixture into submission. I'm gonna say taming the mixture, but whatever. So I'm just gonna stir this all the way down, and it's looking kind of mashed potatoey, but eventually it will start to have a more translucent, smooth, kind of little less fluffy look, more fluid look, and it will look more like Vaseline, kind of. Hence where the Vaseline phase comes in. So now that I'm satisfied with that, now it's time to add my yogurt. I like to do full fat Greek yogurt. You don't have to though. It doesn't have to be full fat or Greek, but you do want to make sure it's plain. Please. Now I'm just going to take my whisk and mix that all together. And of course the point of the yogurt is to help with the fluidity of the soap. I'm just going to mix it in thoroughly. I like to scrape the sides of the pot as I stir. It's looking much more Vaseline now, isn't it? So while I let that marinate, I'm going to go ahead and measure out my fragrance oils and also my colorants. It just works out best that way. Also, you just need to know how good this smells while I make a mess. I'm going to add some activated charcoal because that's what I prefer to use as my black colorant. No specific reason why, that's just the first one I ever used. I've always liked it, and that's that. And I'm just going to mix it into some of the oil. It's olive oil pomace that's already part of the recipe, so I'm not changing the fundamentals of what I use to create it. And I just stir it in. I like to use oil over some other kind of liquid because I feel like it incorporates into the soap better. Alright, next up is a brown from Mad Micah's called Sexy Stranger on a Train. They love crazy names, and so do I, so we're a perfect fit. Also, their colorants are just excellent in every application that I've ever tried them in. And I'm just going to give that a happy little stir like I did with the activated charcoal. Same reasoning, but why am I mumbling? Same reasoning, same everything for why I added it to the oils and such. So now that that's marinated all nicely, first I'm going to dump my fragrance oil in there. Don't forget that. I've almost forgotten like twice. Almost ruined the whole thing. Take my trusty whisk and I really thoroughly incorporate the fragrance oil in there. I give it a good hearty, hefty stir, scraping the sides and just kind of vigorously stirring in between that. I don't know why, but if you don't give it a nice hearty thorough stir, probably a minute or two, then you will have loose fragrance oil at the bottom of your pot when you go to pour, and you might be a little upset about it like I've been. So now I'm just going to separate my soap into different containers so that I can color it, add color, whatever. Now it's time to add my colorants, and really I just dump them in there and do an excessive amount of stirring. And I do circles and then I do what I call like a scoop up from the bottom stir, and that's just because it's fluid but it's still not cold processed, so it's not, you know, as fluid. It's not super liquidy in that way. So I just make sure I stir it all in as thoroughly as possible so I don't have bits of uncolored soap at the end of it, because it's not cute. And going in with my brown, same deal, same everything. I did feel like I should have used slightly bigger cups for these though, because I felt like the mixture was trying to like flow out of the cup as I was trying to stir, which I wasn't a fan of. So maybe don't fill your cup almost completely to the top. Learn from my mistakes. I mean, you can if you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but just saying, when I made the next batch of the soap, I made sure I didn't do that. Right now it's time to pour in the molds. So there's only 2 colors, so you know, the contrasting color deal that I always talk about isn't so much of a big deal here. I'm gonna shake that around so the whole bottom is covered entirely, and then I'm just gonna go back and forth in between colors until I run out. So brown, black, brown, black. Part of me felt like I maybe should have added in some white or something just to give more contrast, but it turned out nice, whatever. And then I banged the mold on the table between every layer, I should say, just to make sure that it's all like cohesively sticking together, if you will. Some people have said that their soaps have not always cohesively joined together, and they have seen some separation between layers. We don't want to see that. To be honest, that's never happened to me, but I'm not trying to see it happen either. Now I'm going to take my actual hanger and do a hanger swirl. I know it's unheard of, but that's how we do it around here in these parts. I'm just going to do a couple figure 8s and then some all arounds. And then that's just going to be it. Now you know I have to go in with the glitter. And I've been finding if I sprinkle the glitter on top before I swirl with my chopstick, it turns out better that way. The glitter sticks better in the soap and it doesn't just go flying off. And I just kind of lightly swirl the top afterwards. It just makes it look prettier. That's all. Who doesn't like pretty and sparkly? So this is the final little bit. I'll give you a nice little close-up. I'm gonna stick it in the freezer for 5 or 6 hours. So before I cut, I let it completely thaw. And here's what the first slice looks like. I think they turned out very nicely. Then I wipe the wire with a paper towel, scoot the whole loaf over, and cut again. And that's how it goes, friends. So that's gonna be pretty much it for this one. Just gonna follow this whole process all the way to the end until I'm finished and cut the entire loaf. I hope you enjoyed watching this process. If you like the special brand of sorcery that I bring to my little happy corner of the internet, go ahead and like this video and click the subscribe button, my friends. I hope you have a magical day. I know I plan to, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.